In this video, we are going back to militia mobilization, initially when the war begins. And we're going to cover training, taking those recruits, the members of the unit that are not, up to speed, not proficient on everything, getting them up to a sufficient level of proficiency, training them. Whether you want to admit it or not, a lot of militias, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have a few people that have been around a while, maybe some military veterans, they know what they're doing. You're going to have a lot of people that maybe they showed up to just a couple meetings, or they've been showing up to meetings, but all you guys concentrated on was shooting drills. So you're missing all the field craft, all the first aid and stuff that goes with it. You need to get everyone up to speed. You need to get everyone proficient in everything they need to know. Now, things to keep in mind as kind of a guidance on this. Total training for your little basic training period here should be 2 to 4 weeks in length. This will be based on the number of people getting trained and how proficient they already are, how much they already know. Your training should be in 1 to 2 week blocks. I have it divided into individual training and also group tasks, group training. But through this whole thing, you need to remember, keep it to the basics. How to shoot, move, communicate, and survive. Now, in the initial first 1 to 2 weeks, your individual training. Of importance on this that you need to concentrate on is proper weapons handling and importance of cleaning your own weapon. You're not going to be taking your weapon to the gun store or gunsmith to clean. You got to know how to do it yourself in the field in field conditions. So you're going to be field stripping it. You're not going to be taking it down to its individual springs and screws. You're field stripping it, cleaning it in the field, busting it down as far as you can without losing individual pieces. Now, as you're doing this, and this should be something that should be reinforced continuously all through training at all times, the individual's weapon should be no more than 1 arm's length away from them at any time. If it is greater than that away from them, there needs to be someone on weapons guard, someone who's watching it, and that weapons guard needs to know they need to watch that person's weapon along with their own. Now, with the weapons handling, you need to work on carrying positions. Sling arms when that's appropriate, when it's not appropriate. How to carry it as you're on patrol, how to carry it in your high ready, your low ready, and that. You need to always maintain muzzle awareness. Always be aware of where your weapon is facing and always consider your weapon as loaded, round in a chamber with the safety off. Even if there is no round in a chamber and your finger's not on the trigger, you need to always keep that in mind that it is in that condition. Safety. Don't flag someone with the barrel of your rifle. I see that a lot in the militia. You need to teach proper cleaning for a weapon. You can over clean them. It does happen. People just go through it and clean it way too much. You need to practice and teach them how far they should clean. You're going to have some they're going to slough off. They're going to just do a wipe down on the outside, say that's it, doesn't matter, it's an AK, it'll keep going. You still got to clean AKs, okay? And you're going to have people that are going to come in and they're going to say, well, I'm a gunsmith, I can do this. You can do that at a workbench with the tools. You're out in the field. If you lose even a single screw, your weapon can be deadline, meaning it's no longer mission capable. You don't want to break it down too far. You don't want to clean it too much. I have seen weapons cleaned to the point of people cleaned them so hard they took the bluing off of them. They stripped the parkerizing off of them. So you had bare exposed metal. You need to teach new people, especially your new shooters, the basic shooting fundamentals. For this, I always remembered when I was in basic training, PABS, P-A-B-S. Correct position, steady aim, breathing control, and trigger squeeze. Those are your basics of being able to fire your weapon accurately. And when you're doing your stuff, try to incorporate as many dry fire drills as you can. That doesn't necessarily mean actually pulling a trigger and letting your firing pin fly forward. But you need to practice or incorporate in there as many dry fire type drills as possible so people get used to the motion. Now I also recommend you include in your weapons training identification of enemy weapons and equipment and how to use it. You capture an M240 Bravo on the battlefield. Everyone needs to know how to load it, how to fire it correctly, how to set it up, how to clean it. You capture a Russian RPG-7. Everyone needs to learn how to fire it, how to handle it, how to clear malfunctions, all of that. You also need to do blocks of training on alternative weapons or means to defend yourself. Taking that stick off that ground, that rock, and beating someone to dead with it. Taking your bayonet, where should you stick it in on the enemy so that it'll stop them from fighting quicker. Either by killing them or paralyzing them so that you can take them out of the fight. You should also have blocks of training on hand-to-hand combat, because there will be times you're going to run out of ammunition, or while you're reloading you get jumped, you can't reach another weapon, you got to fight to defend yourself, and you got to keep fighting till either your buddy shows up to put a round in the enemy or you get the advantage and immobilize them. So we got the basic shoot. Now we have here communications. You need to teach your recruits how to use the radios that you have in the unit, how to use field phones, your field telephones, how to set them up, what problems to look for, how to take care of or correct those malfunctions, and what's the limitations of each type of communication you have available to you. You would also need to work on phonetic alphabet. Phonetic alphabet is, some people probably refer to it as the military alphabet. You have A, B, C, D. Well, in the military, that's Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. Or you can go even older to World War II. I think it was Abel, Baker, Charlie, Delta. Whatever type of phonetic alphabet you use, make sure everyone's on the same page. Make sure everyone in the unit knows that particular alphabet. You need to teach people how to use a radio. Proper transmission techniques. Don't transmit for too long. Don't have the power turn up too high on your radio. If you're only communicating to someone that's less than 500 meters away, you don't need to be using a radio that transmits 50 miles away, okay? And you need to teach people brevity, keeping their communications short, clear, understandable. And you also need to teach people any emergency signals for your unit. Big thing in the military was red smoke, red flares. If someone's injured on a vehicle during an IED patrol, toss out a canister of red smoke, if you could. Another thing was putting a chem light, if it's low light, putting a red chem light in a window or toss it up on top of the roof that someone in a vehicle in back could see it. Another thing was red flares. You need to train people on basic first aid. Start with your basic military first aid, which will keep a person alive if they're injured on the battlefield, and expand out from that. That's when you'll expand into your ABCs of Red Cross. You'll expand into your EMT first responder training. But start with basic military first aid first. How to evaluate a casualty, and then with each step, how to take care of whatever injury is found in that step of evaluated casualty, or as they call it now, tactical combat casualty care. You need to train the individuals on individual movement techniques. These include rush, high crawl, low crawl, and also how to do a silent sneak in approach, basically your sniper crawl. You should also do training where appropriate on how to use boats, how to use skis, how to use snowmobiles, whatever types of means of transportation you have available with you. You need to train people on how to dig a fighting position and also hide positions, how to construct them. Yes, you can screw them up. Yes, you can do them incorrectly. And if you do it incorrectly, the person that did it, the person that has to use that position, is probably going to die if they have to rely on that position to stay alive in a firefight. So you need to teach them how to properly do it. You have a standard on how it should be done, enforce that standard. If your standard is you're digging foxholes for this unit, which I consider a little excessive in most cases, takes too much time. The standard on the foxhole is it's chest to armpit depth. So check it out. The person that digs it, have them jump in there when you're inspecting it. See if it is chest to armpit depth, or did they cheat and only went to low on their chest, just a little over their stomach. It's not deep enough. They need to keep going. Camouflage. You need to teach people how to properly use camouflage. The materials that are around them, feed them in on their uniforms, on their helmets, their caps, whatever you have. Teach them how to make Yeti-flage. It's something that was incorporated by the Viet Cong and used for moving through the woods. I actually have to do a video yet on that. I forgot about that one. Teach them how to camouflage themselves, their weapons, their gear, their positions, and how to camouflage things around your base camps and patrol bases, and when you're out on LPOPs and surveillance duties. And that leads us into the next one. Reconnaissance and surveillance tasks. What should they do and not do when they're out on LPOP duty, listening post, observation post duty? What should they look for when they're out on surveillance? They're watching an enemy perimeter. What's important information to know when they're out performing reconnaissance of enemy positions or for upcoming operations? And then the final individual task I have here is basic survival. How to forage for food, how to put in those snares for those little animals, fish traps to catch fish instead of spending your time out there with a rod and reel. What to look for wild plants, which ones are edible in your area. Also, how to properly prepare food in the field. Food safety guidelines, basic food safety guidelines. You're trying to prevent cross-contamination. You're trying to cook stuff thoroughly enough that people aren't going to get sick. You need to train people on how to purify water, not just with hand pumps, but how to make filtration systems in an emergency to purify water to keep themselves hydrated and alive. Remember, you have people, they could get captured, they escape, they have no more gear, but they still have to make their way back to some type of emergency rally point for the unit, or back to an area where they know the unit's at. It may take them a couple days to get there. They're still going to have to drink water to stay hydrated. They're still going to have to eat. And something that's going to be really important, field sanitation. You need to teach people how to properly dispose of their trash, how to properly take a dump in the field, how to dig a cat hole, your little hole in the ground, the proper depth and all that, eliminate your waste in it, put your toilet paper in it, cover it up, camouflage the area. You need to teach them the basics on that stuff. If you fall behind or lack in this area, people will get sick, people will die. Now your next block of tasks, your next 1 to 2 week tasks will be your group tasks. These will be as fire teams, as squads, and platoons. Your first one, which will lead into basically everything else, is patrolling. How to move as part of a patrol, what are the correct formations, they're dependent on terrain and the situation. What are the hand and arm signals used in your unit, and everyone recognizes them 100% correctly all the time. People understand how they're supposed to orientate their weapon in each patrol formation. They need to understand what formations to get into for movements to contact, what formation they need to be in for searching an area. And then I would also put in there breaking contact drills also for under patrolling. These next two here will be ambushes and raids and attacks. And on these, you must always reinforce in the people, evacuate civilians whenever possible, and keep them protected. Don't just pull them out of the area and say, hey, we're going to attack here, stay low. You're going to have to keep watch on them. You're going to have to post a guard to make sure they do not tip off the enemy. Because you never know, there could be some type of enemy sympathizer in that group of civilians you just pulled out of the battlefield. Or someone who's desperate enough, they'll turn you in so that they get some type of reward. Now with ambushes, you need to teach them the basic types of ambushes, how to set them up. Anti-personnel ambushes, you're taking out a foot patrol. Vehicular ambushes, you're taking out a convoy or individual vehicles. But if they're out there in individual vehicles, they're idiots, they deserve to get destroyed. And how to emplace IED ambushes. You need to cover positions, how you set it up, how far each individual should prepare their position on that ambush. Do they have to go through and dig a fighting position, or are they okay just kind of moving material around themselves just for concealment, just for a little bit of cover? Or are they just going to lay in the grass and try to pull the grass up around them so it's up over the top of them to try to conceal them? You need to teach how an ambush should be laid out, where your security elements should be, where your assault elements should be. Where's your ORP, your objective rally point, where you're going to drop your rucksacks and stuff. And you need to teach each individual's actions during the ambush. What are they supposed to do when? Security elements, for the most part, they hold their fire until the ambush is going on. Then they open fire to keep people from getting into the kill zone or escaping from the kill zone. People that are on the assault element, they need to know when they're supposed to open fire, when they're supposed to cease fire and assault into the kill zone to clear the kill zone. And then once everything's clear and secure, how to properly strip the enemy, what they take, what's the priority. Now raids and attacks, I did some videos on that type of stuff in the past. I'm going to add to that, make sure to reinforce how to properly disengage, how to break contact, leave the area once the primary goal of that mission is complete, is taken care of. This next one, you're not going to see it as much in guerrilla operations, but it will have its times where it will come up, and that is obstacles and field fortifications. Teach them the basics on defensive battles. Teach them the difference between a hasty fighting position and a deliberate fighting position, and when you use each. For obstacles, you don't need to go through and teach giant belts of obstacles, belts of minefields and so forth. It's point obstacles, point minefields, dropping your trees across the road, dropping boulders across the road, maybe taking out a bridge, that type of stuff. You need to teach proper prisoner handling, how to keep them under control during the prisoner search, segregating them, keeping them from talking, and then what to do with them afterwards. Will they be questioned? Will they be released? Whatever the SOP is for the unit. You need to teach the new people the area of operations. Give them an orientation. Give them some of the basic details of your area of operations. Where can they find food sources? Where can they find water? You need to cover crew and team tasks. In this, you're talking your indirect fire, your mortar teams, your anti-tank teams, your engineer teams, sniping, your shooter and the spotter, and your reconnaissance and surveillance teams, the individual task that goes with that. As an example, you need to cover in your group drills landing zone denial. How are you going to stop an enemy from landing in a particular area, or if they do, keep them locked up in that area to turn it into a kill zone? You need to teach how to set up patrol bases and what to do during night stops on patrols. Something that everyone should have, especially leaders, need to concentrate on this one, is law of war. What is a lawful and unlawful target? And then for your headquarters element, weapons and munitions manufacturing, how to make ammo, IEDs, whatever's needed, buy your trigger pullers in the field. And then always here, leader training. Always train your people so that they're ready to take that next position above them. Because if their leader gets taken out, someone's going to have to step right in on the battlefield so that the mission can continue, that people can survive. This is just some of the things you should think about for initial and training and later recruit training in a conflict. You can add to it, take away from it, based on what you think you need in your area. For those of you that never served in the military, I'd say a good place to start, look at basic training or Marine boot camp as an example to build off of. Look in there, see what or how to teach your recruits. But remember, it's militia, it's not military. People can leave at any time. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and militia movements, always remember, essayons.